Hello friends, I am here today in my studio. I've got my drum carder all up and ready to go, and I have some of the wool that I dyed last week. If you want to hear a little bit more about that, I have a video that I just posted that kind of goes over what my dye day spoils were. So you can go check that out if you're interested. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take these lovely dyed locks, card them into bats, and then maybe blend them. I haven't fully decided yet. So what we're going to do to start is take a small section of the locks, gently fluff them, going through and pulling out any bits of vegetable matter, which is usually shortened to VM if you're not familiar. Here's a piece. So just pull it out, toss it in the trash. And kind of what I'm doing is pulling apart the lock structure. So see, we've got before and after. This is pretty much cloud, so fully picked locks. And this obviously is still intact locks. So you go through, and this part takes a little bit of time because you want to be thorough. You don't want to get VM on your carder if you can avoid it. You want to try to protect your equipment. Here's a big piece of VM. These I think these come off of hay that they get fed, but if you're not careful, it breaks up into like 100 little seeds, which is really a downer when you get that all tangled throughout your fleece. Not a fun time trying to pick out all those little pieces. This is a very nice Border Leicester fleece that I'm working with here today. I think I picked it up at Connecticut Sheep and Wool in 2019. And it's a fleece from Stonecrop Farm in New York. All right, so I have fluffed that whole handful now. And so what you do is you open it up as much as you can. Another little piece of VM. You open it up as much as you can. You want it to be a nice flat layer, pretty thin, like that. See how airy that is? And then you lay that down on your carder where you feed in the wool below the little drum, and then you crank it gently. I'm gonna not talk while I'm cranking because I think that might be distracting. So what you do is you slowly feed it in without pulling back with this hand that holds the fiber. You want it to be nice and floofed so that you don't have to pull back, because if you pull back, it wraps around the smaller drum, and that's no good. Then it's kind of out of your working material on the big drum. So I'm going to take this nice and floofed and gently crank it on to the big drum. And now that's done. I don't know if you can tell, this drum is still pretty empty. I've got a long way to go before I'm done with this bat. So I'm going to pause here, and you can come join me again when I have finished doing the first pass on this bat. See you in a minute. All right, friends, we are back. I have finished the first pass on this carder. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a tool and we're going to pull this off. One sec. So I use this nice little pointy death weapon. You just hook and pull up, And you do that a couple of times until the whole bat has been separated. Look how floofy that is. Lovely stuff. And then I just try to collect as much as I can off of the carder. And just gently pull it back. This is about 1 ounce of fiber on this carder right now. This carder can take more than that, but I like to have airy bats. It makes it easier for me to spin, which I like. And I'm just trying to make sure that I get as much off as I can. There we go. All right, so this is our first pass. You can see there are some spots that are still have some intact locks. Like right here, we've got a curly Q. But that picking that I did before I put it on the carder really helped fluff this out. So I'm going to give this, I think, 1 more pass, and then it should be all set. So what I do when I do a second pass is I take my bat and I divide it into fourths. So I divide it just approximately in half, put that down, and then divide in half again. And that gets me quarters. And then what I do is I take this quarter of a bat, which is essentially roving, and I fluff it apart the whole way down. And then that will go straight on the carder quite nicely. There's still a little bit of VM and stuff in here, but that's the nature of working with sheep's wool fresh off of a sheep's back. All right, so I'm gonna put this back on the carder and then show you our finished product. All right, this is the last little bit. So same thing, just fluff it open, and then we'll put it on the bat, or on the carder. Pull off a little bit of a second cut. And this looks really nice. So we'll do the same thing as we did before to pull it off the carder. Just gently use our tool to separate it. And then pull this whole batch off. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, look at that. This is the one that I called lavender. I think it still has very light purple undertone, but it's really much more of a gray. But that's our first bat done. I'm going to repeat it with our 2 other colors, the purple and the darker gray. And I will come back here when that's all done. But yeah, this is really nice. I think it should be nice to spin. Oh, there's a little bit of a second cut. Second cuts are when the shearer, the person shearing the sheep, goes over the same place twice, kind of like they don't cut it quite as close as they want to, so they go over the spot again. But that creates this very short piece of hair, or piece of wool off of the sheep, which, if it's not removed during that like shearing day, is often in the final fleece that you'll receive as a hand spinner. You know, if once the process that's called skirting is done, hopefully that stuff is removed, but they don't always catch all of it. So you have to keep your eyes out for that sort of thing as a hand spinner. All right, friends, so here I am picking locks for our second bat. I accidentally ended up filming this section sideways, but you can still see what I'm doing, and I promise it will get better soon. So this is the blue and black kind of grayish fiber that I dyed a couple of days ago. It's a little bit of a darker gray, a little bit more bluish than the first bat that we carded. And I am just picking the locks, pulling out vegetable matter or VM, and any second cuts that I come across as I do that. And then you can see I fluff up the handful and load that onto the carder, and the small drum sucks it up and loads it onto the bigger drum, which starts to build our bat. As I was talking about a little bit earlier, when a sheep is shorn, the shepherd or somebody working for them will skirt the fleece. And this process is just removing any of the undesirable parts of the fleece that a hand spinner really doesn't want to even deal with. Something that either is really, really dirty or has a ton of VM or even has animal waste on it. None of this is stuff that you really want to go through the effort of washing and processing, so they generally remove it via skirting before they get the fleece packed up and ready to be either sold to a hand spinner or sent off to a mill to be processed into yarn or fiber. I think it's also worth mentioning that hand spinners can do this too. If you see a fleece that you love, but you aren't really into processing fleece, send it to a mill. It costs a little bit of money, but if it's worth it to you, who's going to stop you? So here, this bat looks like it's almost done. I think we're pulling it off right now. Yep, there we go. And so this is the first pass of our darker gray. And here we go with the second pass, loading it onto the carder, nice and easy, nice and quick, much faster than the first pass because you've already got everything picked apart and ready to go. And there's a finished bat right there. So now we have two nice gray bats. And now we get into the pretty colors. So here is our purple. It's kind of like a red wine type of color. Almost looks like a red wine stain. But it's dye and it's beautiful. So something about this bat is that I was in a little bit of a hurry. I was kind of tired. I had been on my feet for a lot of the day, and I was wanting to sit down. So I didn't do as thorough as a job as I could have with picking this fleece. Not necessarily with lots of VM, but there were a lot of intact locks that I was loading onto the carder. And because of this, there wasn't enough of an opportunity for the carder to open up those locks. So I end up actually doing a third pass on the carder. Usually I've been doing a first pass and a second pass, and on this bat I had to do a third pass because there were just some parts that weren't really opened up enough. And that was just a reminder to myself that I really have to take my time with this process and not try to rush things, because rushing things doesn't really speed anything up in the long run. So here's my second pass bat, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's still some second cuts in here, there's still some intact locks, so I'm gonna do a third pass just for safety. Hello friends! It is now the next morning because it got late and I didn't have good lighting to film another video. Hopefully this lighting is okay. I'll have to look at it and see what I think. But here are our bats. You can see how much air is in them. This is only 3 ounces of fiber, but they're big. They're hefty. And that's, like I said earlier, really how I like spinning my bats. I like them to have a lot of air in it. It makes the process of spinning a lot easier for me. But yeah, these are our carded bats. We've got the first one we did, which was that light gray or lavender color. I think I'm going to just call it light gray now. Then our darker gray and our purple. And I'm very happy with these. I think these are going to look really good together. I still have to figure out if I'm going to card them into one like uniform color or if I'm gonna make a self-striping yarn or if I'm gonna just do them in separate skeins and then have an either stripey or colorwork project. But yeah, these are the lovely bats that we made together yesterday, and I had a fantastic time. I hope you did too. I hope that you're having an absolutely great day and that you get some crafting done wherever you are. And I will talk to you again soon. Take care, friends.